for Profit. Hi คุณทิมคุณแอนดรู
I sit upon.
Okay.
Good morning.
May you can introduce yourself คุณ start from คุณทิม first. Who are you คุณทิม and what you look like for planning 4.0?
Excellent. Thanks, sit upon. My name is Tim Gray and I'm the founder of Prophit Systems. We build software solutions and implement solutions for planning 4.0. So our tools help customers, and particularly manufacturing customers, plan their businesses with more foresight. So rather than just worrying about what's happened in the past, clients use our forecasting tools and our planning tools and our purchasing tools and scheduling tools to see what opportunities there are in the marketplace and realize those by making sure they've got the right product in the right place at the right time. And that transition from just reacting and to start looking forward and seeing what's coming, what opportunities or what challenges in your supply chain is what makes planning 4.0 so exciting, and the tools that we built in the way that we work so interesting for our customers.
Right. In my perspective, most of is my life when we work in organization about supply chain. We have many paper, many Excel spreadsheet. When we talk together, we take more time. I hope one day we should have a good platform to help is better in my life, better in the organization. I see it's happen. Right. Okay, Kun Andrew, how about you? What you concern about planning 4.0 and organization better?
Thanks, Considerporn. I think, look, the biggest issue facing most companies these days is their ability to plan and move ahead of their competition, be that little bit better. But that whole I want it now sort of society and supply chain really, and I think the integrated business planning is something that gives every business the opportunity and service their customers better, bring in more customers because they can service them better, and making sure that you have what you want where you want it at the right price, which is always key. And I think that's the genesis of where everyone wants to go. It's not always a smooth journey, and it's always a journey of steps. It's not a leap from 0 to 100. There's a journey to be had.
Right. Okay. Today we try to review what is look like for IBP process. May I can share some slide that Tim you may explain me what is look like for end-to-end IBP process. Could you try to explain more about that? คุณเตเล็กครับ can you show the slide?
Absolutely. And just while the slides are coming up, one of the most profound outcomes of IBP is it's not just it's interesting in why we're looking to get a better view of the business and the whole business end to end, from what our customers want to where our stock is and where it needs to be, to where our resources are aligned and where we need to modify them, all the way through to where we need to purchase from. And there's another benefit that as we provide, as businesses mature in their IBP process, they get very, very good at seeing all these different flows and different perspectives on their business and the supply chains. But there's another interesting dynamic we were just mentioning before, and that is that everyone in the organization, when you can all see the same information, you collaborate without it being a big deal. You don't need to think about if we've got a customer that is short and we're working hard and we're prepared to run overtime or redirecting resources. It stops being an arm wrestle that you see in so many businesses that are siloed because everyone's working on their own local. As we get more transparency through the organization and shared goals, we find that all the management teams are pulling together. It doesn't require a lot of effort because we're using the same information and assumptions. And it's one of the wonderful side benefits and one of the biggest benefits in my experience that doesn't normally make these slide packs or doesn't normally coming to the teachings when you hear about IBP. We tend to focus more on the flow, but for me, what's really exciting is the way that the business processes and the interaction between the management teams really, really aligns.
Right. Tim, if you have some slide to share, you can share from your computer now.
Yeah, sorry, I thought you had some slides up. If you can, if we go back to, you had that slide before, and we'll just talk.
Right. Okay. So I can use this slide that we have. So for instance, is when we look at about end-to-end supply chain, what we should start from, because some organization is in my experience, some my customer they start from supply side, not demand side, because they cannot predict for demand side, but they try to predict from historical period of time. So they can think when they do some budget, they think this year we have is 100% market growth. Next year maybe 110%. So this is they look like. But when we think about is demand planning, we should start from sales side, customer side. What do you think about that in terms of end-to-end supply chain, where we start from demand side or supply side?
Yeah, I'm very much of the opinion we must use the demand side. I think COVID has taught almost every business in the world that relying on what happened last year is fraught with danger. It's okay until it's not. And the last year and a half for most businesses have been tumultuous, whether your business has done well through COVID or whether you've been challenged or don't have a business anymore. The last 2 years are not a good indication of what's going to happen this year. So looking forward has another benefit, as well as just tending to be more accurate, is that we want to see opportunities as they arise. So if I keep looking in the rear vision mirror when I'm driving, I'll have an accident. Right? And if you use history, it's the same thing for your business. If you just look at history, it's very limited. It's not a bad thing to do, but you do it just to look back and see, what can I learn and what do I need to do to recalibrate going forward? But my focus should be where I'm heading, not where I've been. So in IBP, one of the first things we start with is demand planning. And the demand planning, a little bit like some of the other benefits we touched on, we want to get the best information we can. And there's a trap with systems planners that they'll try and say you statistics. And there's a lot of excitement in the world about machine learning and artificial intelligence using to clean your data and predictive machine learning models to show you what's happening. And in many, many businesses, these are not so important. There's a lot of excitement around it, but that's particularly in the next couple of weeks and trying to predict what's happening in the next few weeks. For me, what most businesses need is a longer horizon and some certainty and some dialogue with their major customers and their future potential customers. Because my business, if you're a business to business, you get so much information and so much credibility, and you entwine your business with your customers if you talk to them. If you don't talk to your businesses, your major customers, you may not know that they're out shopping, and they might go with somebody else because you're not close enough to get this. So it's a key part of business that we can't ignore just because we're becoming more digital. It's very, very exciting to talk about, statistics and machine learning and so on, and it has its place, and they're right to be excited. But the whole of demand planning is about getting all of the information that we can. Statistics and machine learning are one part of that. Another part is what's happening with my customers. Another part is what's happening with new product introductions or other technologies in the marketplace that might need to shape your offer or may open up new boundaries or close off markets to you. Being as agile and aware in each of those sectors of your market is pivotal if you want to be able to defend off competitors and embrace or grasp any opportunities as they arise. And a good demand planning process is less about getting perfect numbers, although that's a natural outcome. It's more about making sure that you fully understand what's happening in your domain, both your current domain now and your future domain. And so when you start thinking about the demand planning process as I want to get all of the market intelligence I can about what's happening with my customers, what's happening with international foreign exchange rates that might influence my competitiveness in other markets, what's happening with other competitors and so on, and what's changing my product range and my competitors' product ranges that may impact our supply and our demand. This is really, really important. And once you get in a rhythm of having these conversations with your sales team, with your customers, and continue to look at what's happening in the market landscape, you become very aware, and you become less worried about the individual numbers and more about what's changing. And as we see what's changing, we begin to be able to predict very, very powerfully what's happening in the marketplace and what we need to do to counter it. So it is absolutely not just like driving, looking forward. Now it's like having a GPS. So I can navigate what's the best way to where I want to go.
Right.
Okay.
Tim, may I ask some question? Maybe Kun Andrew can answer also. Most of organizations that they have ERP, enterprise resource planning. Some company they implement both for ERP and MRP. But it's when they implement finish, they still have is planning on spreadsheet, and also when they have some sales and operation planning meeting take so long, and maybe it's defense, and sometimes it's not agree together because it's not a balance from demand side and supply side. What it look like is the pain point can solve from end to end IBP in this situation.
You've touched on, there's a number of really important points there, and the first thing I'd say is, before I go on, I don't hate Excel. It's a wonderful tool, and in fact, it's brilliant for prototyping. What Excel is not good for is, firstly, being able to repeat a process over and over and get the same result every time. Because we've all had examples where we had a formula, we accidentally overtyped it with a number, and in a complex spreadsheet, you never know that you've somehow corrupted the formula. And when the owner of the Excel spreadsheet goes and somebody takes over, they may misuse it and not understand. So Excel is very good for starting, and that's why it grows so prolifically. Is if Andrew was told, Andrew, I need you to do some statistical forecasts for me to tell me what material we're going to need to buy next year. So Andrew can go away and do that in Excel very quickly. He doesn't need to know what other tools are available. He doesn't need to go and raise the CapEx for getting a new tool bought. But the problem is that when he starts having to do that, and then they want to add another formula and another product, and they want to start predicting labor usage and so on, suddenly Andrew's stuck inside a spreadsheet. No one else in the business knows what to do with it. And it's not integrated. By that, I mean, he might get the data out of SAP or his ERP system, but he can't push it back in. When people do analysis in Excel, it stops being integrated. It's a one-way traffic. You can't push that data back in because it's not in the same format anymore. It's not at the right detail, and it doesn't peg back in. And that's the difference between a business where you're just starting to learn the thought processes and maybe starting to set up the processes and practices versus a fully integrated system where you've got the tools in place and the management thinking in place and the business processes in place, and the information flows from one decision to the next decision point without you needing to massage data or drop it into Excel and do something funky. That's where you start all working in harmony. So the integrated world is where you're not dropping it into Excel. Maybe you do some reporting in Excel, it doesn't matter so much. But if you're making decisions, let's say I'm deciding how much to purchase, I don't want to have it in Excel and then I can't do anything with it. I need to have it in a system where I can look, plan, see what's going to happen in the future, decide how much to purchase, and then have that automatically ready for presentation to my customers, where it can then be tracked from my execution system. It shouldn't require somebody to sit there and type it in, make typing mistakes, accidentally send the order to the wrong vendor and so on. We want a system that when you make a decision, it automatically flows through to the execution end, so it can be executed with no further inhibitions or delays or error points.
Right.
So yeah, we talk about Excel ghettos because they become so, they start with all the best intentions, and people just like ourselves and others in management or in positions where you have to make decisions. In the absence of tools, you drop it into Excel and you do something clever, and it's great. But people get very possessive because they build really smart stuff, but it's not scalable and it's not robust. So while it's great that people are thinking that way, we need to help them. And part of the IBP journey is always helping them get off Excel, get the great thoughts that were behind what they built, and help them go to the next level what we find is once you take away the need to continually maintain this ghetto of Excel spreadsheets that are intertwined, you might liberate 3, 4, 5, 10 hours a day of some people that are just become spreadsheet jockeys, fueling their spreadsheet decision making. I want those people to be able to spend more time making decisions, less time worrying about whether the Excel is going to stand up. And that's exciting. You find you get more resources through you make smarter and more informed decisions because you can see with good tools and good systems and good processes and integrated processes, your attention should be drawn to where a decision needs to be made. Shouldn't be worrying about whether the data is flowing through your Excel spreadsheet, right?
Okay. Could Andrew, what do you think is most organization try to demand planning, but it's most of demand more not much accurate. What they can do better in terms of is a demand side to make it better in their organization.
From a demand point of view, I think demand is just like everywhere else in your supply chain. You know, the big things I'm hearing when we talk to clients is very much what Tim alluded to, as he said earlier. You know, this is the demand means that you've in order to get demand right, you need some very common things that you may not be doing at the moment, right? So, you know, I take away words like collaboration, communication, responsibility, capability.
Right.
You know, in demand, there's a new set of these things that need to be thought about as you move into doing this differently. Because again, to Tim's point, you know, ERP is static. It's generally fairly binary, and it's linear. It isn't dynamic. And when you start talking about demand planning and particularly having to be dynamic about it, because demands change. And if you haven't got the capability sets within the business to do that, then you're not going to be able to do it well, if at all. And the outcome is probably going to be worse for you than what you had before. Because to Tim's point, people have built up their demand ways of working, which work for them at the moment, but they are not going to be scalable and for them to build upon. So for me, it's kind of in that demand area. You know, the big one is communication. You know, it's a little bit like what we see in procurement for a long time. Procurement was very much about how hard can you beat your suppliers over the head to get it cheaper. That is not how the world works anymore. It has to be collaborative. And that comes with a very new capability set. Not everyone operates under that type of framework. You then look at responsibility as well. There's a new set of responsibility here. You know, as Tim alluded to before, if you work in a silo, that means that you're taking responsibility for the silo, and your KPIs are everything that it means to you. When you start working in a more dynamic environment, your responsibility set needs to become broader. So anyone can make to stock, and forget about the poor old warehousing guy that needs to shove it all in a corner somewhere or go and get more warehousing. You know, that to me is kind of where demand, if we're going to look at demand, and I think it is a great place to start, because if you're not getting that right, then it doesn't really matter what you do with supply, because you know, you can have all the product there in the world, all of the raw material in the world, but you're not making to what is the demand. And you know, and it's not the same for every business, right? So if you think about livestock industry, so slaughter, that's a very push-driven business, but that's a smaller piece of the world. So, you know, for me, they're the kind of things that we concentrate on when we talk about demand and move into that space.
If I can just share a quick screen with you. This is an image we often use to explain to the management team.
Right.
the difference with the ERP, which is the ERPs are built from their accounting foundations. Even the very best and most expensive ERP systems are very, very good at telling you what's happened in the past. It's a bit like they will tell you when the order was received, when we purchased the material, when we started working on it, when we dispatched it from the warehouse, when the invoice was paid. All of these things have one thing in common, that is that they've all happened in the past. And once they've happened in the past, they are absolutely static. It's set in stone. What for me is the limitation of all of those ERP systems is because they're built on that foundation of being able to report what's happened. They've projected that forward, where you only have one speed to plan at, you only have one cost to sell at, and you only have one default route where it's going to be made, and so on. And the assumptions that work so well, telling the accountants what happened in the past and reporting your financial performance, are quite debilitating when you need to start looking at what happens, where am I? And for me, this is also why it's so important, Industry 4.0 and the advent of faster and cheaper ability to really calibrate exactly where your machines are running and where your stock is and where your deliveries are. This access to real-time information, which is underpinning the Industry 4.0, is a bit like having a dashboard. That's really, really fundamental. You can't navigate your course unless you know exactly where you are. And so knowing the speed that you're running, knowing if your engine's overheating, and so on is really important. But so is knowing where the other traffic is on the road. But for us, the demand planning is about painting a picture of what's coming. So without a view of what's coming, traveling faster gets pretty scary.
Okay. So today we do is a demo version for planning 4.0. We will have is more episode series for IBP process for the know more what is look like in industry 4.0 perspective and digital transformation in terms of supply chain and organization that can have is a better planning integration from end to end. We will do is very soon. Please join us when we start the EP. Thanks so much for today.
Thanks, Constantine. Thanks, Andrew.
Please stay ทีเล็กเดี๋ยว end broadcast ได้เลยครับ